Narcissistic or normal?
So today we have a special guest with us,
Yes.
licensed marriage and family therapist Carla Lito, to talk with us about narcissistic behavior and what that might look like in our relationships. All right, you're going to... So we're going to bring Carla in 1 minute. So stay tuned because what? We'll be right back. So, Jason, it's Friday.
It sure is.
And guess what we do on Friday?
What we do?
Cue the music.
All right, let's get it.
Welcome to Loving Beyond the I Do podcast. This power couple is building stronger marriages one day at a time. Talking about real issues on love, relationships, and marriage longevity. Let's break down the barriers and engage in healthy conversation with your hosts, Jason and Tina Marie. Take a seat and buckle up because things are about to get real.
Hey, welcome to the show. It is about to get real up here in the studio.
Right. Welcome to another episode on Friday. Welcome to our Friday Night Live.
Welcome to another episode of Loving Beyond the I Do podcast. We are your hosts, Jason and Tina Marie.
That's me.
And we are here to inspire and empower individuals with actionable strategies, tools, and insights for developing meaningful and fulfilling relationships using universal principles, effective communication, and mindset shifts.
And how do we do that? We do that using the Manifest Method framework to help individuals like you create and develop the type of relationship you want. You ask, well, what is the Manifest Method? Glad you asked. It is the building blocks we use to help you and everyone else take your relationships off cruise control by doing this. Using the Manifest framework, mindset, awareness, nurture, intention, focus, empower, strengthen, and transform.
All right, now we know exactly what we're doing with the framework.
All right, guys, so make sure if you haven't grabbed your book, go grab it. ManifestAJoyFillRelationship.com for the book. All right, so without further ado, what we're going to do? We're going to bring on our guest.
Oh, we're going to bring on our guest?
That's right.
I've been waiting all week for this. I think it's been like 2 weeks. I think so. Let me see if I can get her on here. Yeah.
All right, so let's welcome to the show, Miss Carla Lito. How are you, Carla?
Hi, I'm good. It's great to see you guys again.
Yes, good to see you too.
Yes.
So for you guys who have not watched the episode, Carla was our guest on episode number 160. Can we bring that up? So go and look at it on YouTube or listen to it, wherever you get your podcast.
I'm trying to get it.
And Jason's trying to get it.
Yep. Got a lot going on here. Yep.
You got a lot going on here.
There it is. It was an excellent episode. She was dropping a bunch of gems. I mean,
That's
she was
right.
giving us the good, the bad, and the ugly on this.
The
So
good,
just
the bad, the ugly. It's supposed to be indifferent.
okay,
All right.
it's indifferent, but we're talking about narcissistic behavior. So I
Which
think
is
that's
good,
ugly.
bad, and indifferent.
Okay,
That's okay.
all right. Depends
No-
on how you look at
No
it.
judgment. No judgment
Yeah,
zone.
I'm
It's a
not
no
judging.
judgment zone.
Right.
All right, guys. So, Carla, can you please tell our audience, our viewing audience, a little bit about yourself?
Yeah.
I'm a psychotherapist in Los Angeles, California, and I specialize in relationship issues, specifically narcissistic abuse recovery. I help people manage their difficult relationships or break free from toxic, narcissistic, abusive relationships. I'm the author of a book called Outsmarting Egomaniacs: How to Respond to Narcissists and Master Manipulators. And I'm happy to be here today with y'all. So
Thank you for joining us.
Yep,
Thank
we're
you.
happy
Thank
to
you.
have you as well.
All right, so let's get into the conversations, guys.
Hold on.
So our first comment, you got to take it off your side. Okay. Good evening, Jason and Tina, listeners and guests from Calumet City, Illinois. Thank you,
welcome,
Doc, for
Doc.
tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in.
That's right. And don't forget, guys, please make sure you drop a line in the comment section so that we can shout you out if you are viewing. And please ask a question for your friends. All right? It
Yeah,
doesn't
because
have
we
to-
know your relationships are all good. We're not
Perfect.
dealing with any type of this,
That's
none
right.
of this issues and stuff like that. But your friends might.
Or if you actually may have comments about you dealing with people like this, right? Comments,
Because
you
we
can
all
chime
have
in.
that friend that we're asking a question about. We
Right.
know. I think, Carla, didn't you say it was like drama queens and mama's boys and what else? What was the other one?
Yeah, in that last episode, we were talking about mama's boys. We were talking about drama queens. We were all different types of.
So
Yeah.
tell us about that. Let's get into it. So what are some of the behaviors when we're talking about narcissistic behavior? And please correct me if I am putting words together that don't go. So is it narcissistic behavior or?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
behavior can be narcissistic, and when it's empathy deficient, self-absorbed,
Oh, wow.
self-entitled.
All of
Um,
those things are narcissistic behavior? Wow.
yeah, I mean, look, in isolation, if oh, this person is a little self-absorbed, it doesn't mean they're a narcissist, but
Okay.
that is it can be narcissistic. They might have some narcissistic traits. They might engage in some narcissistic behaviors. So we don't know when people exhibit narcissistic traits if they have narcissistic personality disorder. And we all have some narcissism on a scale, on a
On some
spectrum.
level, right?
Okay.
Right. And so, but when you're dealing with this problematic behavior and it feels like it's always about them and they are so defensive in a way where you can't have a conversation that achieves mutual understanding because the defenses come out, and when you feel that you're invisible in the relationship or you're belittled, and that can feel like you're dealing with someone narcissistic.
Narcissistic.
So, and then it becomes problematic. And at high degrees of this, it can maybe be an emotionally abusive relationship. So, I like to focus on what's happening to you more than classifying, is it
Behavior.
narcissistic or not? And if it feels like narcissistic behavior, let's talk about it and let's kind of see what you can do about it.
So I noticed you said you deal with recovery.
Yeah.
Right? Okay,
Mhm.
so what does that mean? So when you said you like to focus on the person, maybe so what? Someone comes to you. So explain that whole process, right? What is what does that mean?
Right. Well, people come to me in different stages. So if they're still in the relationship, let's just take the earliest stage of still being in the relationship and starting to realize maybe for the first time, I think this person is a narcissist. I've been reading about it, and I'm feeling horrible. Like my self-esteem has plummeted. I am full of self-doubt. I feel like I can't speak up in this relationship. Every time I try to bring something up with my partner, I'm gaslit or shamed or dismissed. And I think this is a narcissist. And so, we unpack the relationship, and we look at like what's happening and how is this person communicating with you? How are you communicating with this person? What role are you playing? Not that you're asking to be abused or mistreated, but how are you maybe inflaming the situation instead of protecting yourself
Right.
from someone like this? And really just kind of looking at the dynamic, and when it seems clear that they are dealing with someone who is all about themselves and not interested in any self-reflection or improving at all,
Mhm.
or helping the relationship, then really it comes down to the person recognizing what they have control over. And that's like setting your boundaries and then choosing to stay or go. When you set a boundary and that person doesn't respect your boundary, now you have a choice. And that's, well, maybe I want to leave this relationship.
And
That was
it's
a lot of like what we were talking about.
right. I was getting ready to say that,
Yeah.
right? So don't set a boundary
I
that you're
saw a clip on
Right.
that. Yeah.
right. So it's sort of like don't set a boundary that you're not willing to
To
act
keep,
to
to
keep
honor it.
and to
Right.
implement to do.
Or set the boundary, but don't say, I'm going to leave you if you don't fix this thing. It's, this thing is important to me, and then you see if the other person cares and is willing to fix it with you. And if they don't, then really you do want to reflect on, do I want to stay with a person who's not interested in resolving our relationship problems and just wants to focus on how they're flawless and without fault, right? Because
Right.
that's not sustainable. And so narcissistic abuse recovery is really helping them through all of those stages, like through the breakup. And even when people come to me after a relationship has ended, the healing is really in building themselves back up and building their confidence back and getting back to who they were before this person, came along and messed with their sense of self. And in the complex PTSD, and there's a lot of anxiety that comes with dealing with someone who's this disturbed and problematic. You start second guessing yourself all the time, and there's a lot of anxiety around setting boundaries and advocating for yourself because the price to pay was so high in the relationship with the narcissist.
Go ahead. Were you?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So I was just saying, so what are some of, like you said, so your self-esteem plummets, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the early signs that people can look for if they're in a relationship? Because I think we all never look at ourselves. We kind of blame the other person in relationships. And like you said, we all have a tendency to have some type of narcissistic behavior, right? It's just kind of who we are, right? Nobody wants to blame themselves. But what are some of the signs that are really detrimental? Like you should really, right, red flags. We always talk about red flags.
When someone's always blaming other people and they're the victim in the mess that they created themselves and never look at their role in anything ever. So for example, when you're in a relationship and you bring to the other person your feelings, and if you know that you did your part well of bringing it up in a constructive way. And so by that, I mean, not putting them on the attack, not accusing them of stuff, not coming in hot, angry, right? You got to come in, in a gentle, soft way. You talk about your feelings, I statements. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about that.
Right.
We talk about
exactly. Right.
I feel not, you, this and that. Right. So you don't accuse. If you stay away from all that stuff, and you've done it the right way, and you're just talking about your feelings, and you do it in a way that's vulnerable and caring, and not putting them on the attack, and you still get blamed and the reaction is defensive and they're doing everything to save their image and shift the blame back on you. And they won't take responsibility for any problem they caused. That's a sign. That's a sign. Like if you can't get through and ever have a discussion where you feel heard and seen, whether you agree or not, because you don't have to agree.
Right. Exactly. So
but you know what? I mean, sometimes people spin it as I'm just a strong individual. I'm a leader at work. I'm a leader in my church and other organization. That's just part of leadership.
And sometimes people do take on their careers.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're saying they might say like, I'm a leader, so I'm going to listen to you?
Hey, listen, that's what leaders do. They lead.
Okay. No, but I vehemently disagree. A good leader listens to their team and wants to know what's going on with everybody on the team. That's the sign of a good leader. So like, you can't be like, that's a narcissist. I'm in charge. I don't have to listen to what anybody else says. That's narcissistic, actually. And so, you have some leaders who are narcissistic, and that's exactly right. They're not listening. They don't care how everybody around them feels. But a good, strong leader in a system where things are functioning well, it's because they're taking into account the experiences of all the people around them, no matter what their hierarchical level is. It's right. It's important how everybody.
Yes.
It's the whole picture. It's the whole big picture.
Yeah. So let's get our comments real quick.
Okay. So Darlene Edwards is checking in. She says, good evening, family.
Good evening, Darlene.
We appreciate you.
Yes, we appreciate you checking in. Let's see the next comment.
Okay.
What if someone doesn't display narcissistic behavior until later years in a relationship?
Ooh.
Okay. Well, I mean, look, you're not going to see it right away. Years is a really long time. Usually it'll rear its ugly head in a few months or so.
And I think sometimes maybe even when she's saying that, I think sometimes we don't even really know. And that's why I asked what are the signs, because sometimes we just think that that's just a part of people's personality. As we get more, read more, get more information, we're realizing that there are disorders. And so you call this a disorder. There are characteristics that define this. So sometimes when we're in relationships, we just take it on as that's just how that person is. But that's why I had asked you, what are the red signs? And when she says years later, I don't think is that it's showing up years later. I think you're just now recognizing it.
You're becoming aware now.
Right.
Yeah, and I think a lot of things, there are a lot of explanations for why it's happening years later. So what part have you been playing in
Feeding it.
yeah, like maybe because narcissists, like, they don't just come in and show you, I'm a narcissist, I'm in control of you now. So
Boy, that would be easy. That
Yeah.
would
right,
be
you better do it as I say. They right, like they
yes,
test you, and
yes,
they
yes.
groom you, and they see, like, they push limits and how much can I get away with. And so if you're not setting good boundaries, if you're not advocating for yourself, if you're feeling guilty every time you take care of yourself and not this person, if you're feeling like it's your job to keep this person happy, or else you are conditioning this person to get their needs and exclusively their needs met at all times, which is going to breed and grow more narcissistic behavior. You're telling this person that it's okay, that this relationship orbits around you, and that's been positively reinforced. So, and I'm not saying you've been doing that because I don't know you, I just saw
Right.
it
Right.
on the screen, but I would ask you to look at, how has this relationship been functioning before the behaviors came out that were such that you would classify them as narcissistic? Were there early signs of that? Were there times when, it seemed like maybe this person's a little self-motivated, but it's not that big of a deal? And did it kind of mushroom and grow because of your interaction together? That's one thing. That's
I,
one
yeah, I
possibility.
was
Yeah.
going to say, so like, just like what you said, right? The interactions.
Mhm.
What you maybe ask yourself, what am I doing to feed into it? What am I doing to continually, like you said, they push boundaries. They
Awesome.
do this. They're trying to see how far they can get. How much can they blame you? How much do you take on? So maybe even look back and say, hey, if I set up boundaries, are they open to them? Right?
Right.
So, so when you said when it shows up years later, maybe it has just gotten to a point where we become aware, and now we're like, well, wait a minute. Now that I want to set up boundaries and I really want to find myself, is it hard for me to do it? Maybe along those
Mhm.
lines?
Yes, it's been brewing. And now you're trying to go back and do something different when you have this pre-established relationship of he's king, you're servant, or
Right.
and now this person doesn't like it that you're setting boundaries. You haven't been doing that before, so it's not going well.
Okay,
Um,
let's get that next message real quick to make this clear.
Yeah.
So she's asking for someone else.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Which is fine, which is
Absolutely.
great. Now you have a lot of good information to give back to.
There's one other thing I would consider, I would throw in there as a
Okay.
possibility. Think about what things have changed, and if drug and alcohol use has increased or become a new thing,
Mhm.
there's always going to be a radical change in behavior. And most addicts, when they are using, not addicts in recovery necessarily, but when an alcoholic is drinking and not giving up their drinking, their behavior tends to be narcissistic. They are
Exactly.
self-involved. And so
Exactly.
if suddenly, so see if there are events like that coinciding with the change in behavior. That's just another possibility to consider.
Okay, so that's what she says. See if they're, so when she says what if it doesn't show up till later, you're saying, well, what behaviors
Yeah,
has
has
happened? Are they
changed, right.
drinking
Right.
more? Are
Yeah,
they
exactly. If
yeah,
suddenly this person's drinking a lot more, maybe they used to just drink beer at football games, and
right.
now it's shots of whiskey all night long,
Exactly.
their behavior is absolutely going to change.
Exactly. Whether they're narcissistic or
They're
not.
not, right.
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 And so do you think that people that are like that have a tendency to indulge in other activities, right? What do you call them?
What did you say?
Addictions or things
Oh,
like
okay.
that, whether it's
Yeah, I think,
sex, alcohol,
addiction.
drugs. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I think addiction can coincide with anything really. And
Hmm.
so I don't think it has to go with narcissism. And a
Okay.
narcissist can be a narcissist, a really good narcissist, with or without alcohol or drugs. Like, they don't they don't need
They're
the
good at
drugs
what
or
they
alcohol.
do.
Right. They don't need advice.
They're narcissisting just fine without that boost from, vodka or whatever. So, right. But people who maybe aren't were never like this when they're
Right.
using drugs and alcohol, you might see this behavior now. And so that's something to think about.
Okay. Okay. You just said, let's look at it. Let's get her other comment. All right, she says the person that I'm asking for just doesn't respond to the behaviors. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So, which that takes us back to our episode, guys. And so, if you have not watched it, please go to YouTube and look at episode number 160 to hear the full conversation, because we do go deeper into it and we learn about the behaviors and her whole background and how she got into it. And so, tonight is really geared for you all asking your questions, or even sparking curiosity, right? You may know someone that you may say, well, something's a little off with them, or something's
Right.
a little wrong. And so
I can't put my finger on it.
yeah.
But yeah.
So you talk about,
Well,
it's-
before that, I want to bring up the book and let Carla talk about her book
Okay.
some. So,
All right.
Carla, can you go ahead and tell us about your book?
Yeah. So this book was designed to help people who are struggling with someone who they think might be a narcissist or someone who's very manipulative. And so it lays out all the different types of manipulators and their manipulation tactics. And then it gives you tips and tools for how to deal with them, how to communicate better with them or with everybody, and how to break free of their control over you. And even, in the end, just some of the confidence building um, tools too, if you're coming out of a relationship like this, how to kind of get back to yourself.
have you
Yeah.
ever found that maybe someone who may be viewing us right now
Mhm.
may be a narcissist, right? And
Ye-
they're looking back, like, do you
Hmm.
find that they usually relate and they go, wait a minute, is that me? Or are they still in the denial
Like,
mode?
that's not me.
Right.
Narcissists do not self-reflect, and when they're confronted, like a real narcissist, not someone who might be, an egomaniac, as I say on the book, but that covers the whole broad spectrum, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Right. So anyone can be an egomaniac. It doesn't mean they're a real
Right.
narcissist, right? So they don't. They'll be confronted with information. Partners leaving them, and bosses firing them for insubordination, and friends not wanting to hang out with them anymore. None of those things will make them think, hey, maybe I'm the common denominator here. They're not going to look at the list of the criteria like
Wow.
I have in the book and go, that's me. They're going to go, oh, that's so-and-so. That's my boss. Oh, that's my sister. Oh, that's my ex-boyfriend. Oh,
Right.
that's right. But they
Right.
never see themselves. So they see
Wow.
everybody else. Narcissists can recognize other narcissists very well.
Wow.
But they don't see it in themselves. And it doesn't take, there are a lot of things that should wake them up to it. And if they're really narcissistic, nothing does.
Wow.
Wow.
Let's see our other comment real quick.
Okay. So Nancy Smith.
All right, Nancy Smith, thank you. Happy Friday. Happy Friday.
Friday.
Thank you for
Yep.
joining us. Please feel free to listen and chime in if you have any questions, or you have any questions for a friend. All right, so my next thing would be
I
This-
have a quick question.
Mhm.
Like, obviously you're not going to divulge any information, but like if you have a couple in front of you and you're going through a session and you can maybe spot like one of the individuals are, narcissistic, and the light bulb goes off and like, I think that's me. Have you ever had something like that happen, that they get the realization? I know you said that it's always pointing at someone else. Have you ever had someone have that light bulb moment in your presence?
Someone narcissistic go, oh, I think I'm a narcissist.
Well, like I have some of those characteristics, but not
wait.
saying like you.
she's
Oh.
did you see her face? She's
I
like
did. I know. I saw that.
No, I'll tell you what does happen though. People who are not narcissists wonder all the time if they are. So I do have clients go, but I wonder if I'm a narcissist, or
Right.
or he's saying I'm a narcissist. Do you think I am? Let's talk about this. And this is some stuff that I do. And because they've been projected upon, they've been
Yes.
gaslit, they've been
Okay.
manipulated, but not an actual narcissist. They're not going, I think maybe I'm the problem here. I just thought, boom, light bulb went off. That's not, no.
Right.
no,
Yeah.
no,
That's gonna happen. All right.
no.
So my thing was, as we're having the conversation, is where do you think it stems from?
Well, two different factors. There's always the genetic factor of,
Okay.
being born with a personality. But then how that personality develops really depends on your early attachment and caretaking. And parenting. So, you're gifted with your personality. And if you have some narcissistic traits, then, maybe you're kind of like, an egomaniac, or, maybe you have, you're that bossy one that people, get sick of after a while, or whatever, it develops into a personality disorder when, with a certain type of environment. And it's not one type of environment. It's, there are different types that could breed this, type of personality, to the point where it's a disorder. But in my opinion, the most common, the most, I would say, obvious one is the enabling and spoiling. When you positively reinforce self-entitlement, you're telling the child that, like, they should continue to be self-entitled and greed driven, and that only they matter and only their feelings matter, and that, they don't have to face consequences. So when you shield your children from consequences, like, no, not my Johnny, no, he doesn't ever do anything wrong, right? That tells the child, like, I'm invincible. I have omnipotent control. Like, my parents don't even discipline me. And then if you can manipulate your parents, so a lot of spoiling is parents getting manipulated. It's throwing a tantrum for, until the parents are worn out, and they go, okay, fine, here's your ice cream cone. And that tells the child, well, if I throw a fit long enough,
Right.
I get what I want. So when a child learns to manipulate their own parents, that develops, a feeling of omnipotent control and self-entitlement. If you can manipulate your parents, you can when you're a small child, you can manipulate anyone. And so you do. That's what you do. They talk about neglect and abusive parents too, contributing to this. And certainly that can also be a contributing factor. Right. But, it's pretty easy to imagine how, if you take someone who already has some of these traits and you just positively reinforce it, that the traits are going to grow into a bigger problem.
Have you ever found that it could be the opposite? Let's just say you have a child that you do discipline, but they're just kind of, strong-willed
Yes.
and manipulative, and always doing things. And so you're trying to discipline them, but then, you discipline them, but they still don't learn. So have you ever found that because they have that?
That happens a lot when you have strong, devoted parents who are willing to be uncomfortable for the sake of good child rearing and discipline. And unfortunately, if the personality, that to me would be someone already that's going. There's a personality disorder brewing there, and also you have to look there. There are other things to consider too. A lot of times in families like that, you have one very strong parent who's very good with discipline, but the other parent spoils that child. And when when the good parent is undermined by the enabling parent, it's just as bad as two parents spoiling that child, if not worse, because the child learns how to triangulate the parents and manipulate them against each other. And so all you need is one parent who is positively reinforcing narcissistic behavior.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm just like, my mind is all over the place.
It's interesting because one thing that we teach is like it's the parents raising the child, not one parent is doing more and you say you're going around one parent to get to the other one to try to get something. No, if mom said no or dad said no, it's no across the board.
Yes. Beautiful, you guys. You have to be, yes. I completely agree with that. You have to be a united front. You have to be a team. And if children feel like they can, go around one parent and manipulate one parent to give them what the other one said no, that not only is it, is it not good for the relationship for the two parents, because the one who gets undermined is going to be very angry and resentful at the parent who gives in, but also it's bad for the child. That does sort of breed self-entitlement. It's saying it's okay if you push hard enough, one of us is going to give you what you want. And you're also telling that child, look at how much control and power you have. You can manipulate mom and dad against each other.
Right.
So that's what they're going to go and maybe try to do if they have narcissistic tendencies. I'm going to go do that everywhere I can. I'm going to triangulate people, which is what narcissists do. They bring in other parties to make their to manipulate more.
I was just going to say, so many grandparents are involved now, right? The grandparent isn't on the side anymore. They're so involved. And would you call that, do you think that could contribute to if you're undermining, the grandparent is undermining the parent? Right, so the parent says no, they can't have this,
It's
and
like,
then
oh,
they go,
baby, you can go ahead and have it.
or right, and so the grandparent comes in and says, and they go, well, Daddy said I can, but can I have, So do you think that's adding to that behavior too, and could create someone like that who feels like they're manipulating the whole scenario?
It depends on how involved the grandparents are and how much time they spend with the kids. So if it's one of those grandparents who like lives in the house and helps taking care of the kids, that's another caretaker, and that is essentially like a surrogate parent or like kind of a parent.
Right.
And so I would say potentially yes. If it's like grandma, we're going to grandma's, and we see, grandma and grandpa every other Sunday or, holidays or whatever, and then they spoil the heck out of that kid, that's okay. I mean, they don't have that much time with them. They're not
So that's
parent figures. They can, whatever they're doing, it's not going to cause any harm that they're spoiling them with the little time that they have.
Right.
I wouldn't worry about that.
Okay. So now we're talking about that person, right? That individual who has been supported in their family environment with these behaviors. Now they're into a relationship, right? When you are the receiver, is it more of quick-tempered, right? That person is quick-tempered. That person doesn't really want to hear what you're saying. Their opinion is always right. Is it? So I'm just like, what are some of these things that people can actually touch and see, right? So, hey,
what are the signs? Yeah.
This is what, most people say, well, something happens and they're off, they're instantly upset.
Johnny goes straight to 10.
Or no matter what we try to do, it always ends up in an argument.
They get set off really easily.
Yeah.
There's that, because anything that touches their shame, that shame button, they lose it, because they're doing everything to prevent that. They don't want to look at themselves, and they don't want to look at their character deficiencies. So they're protecting against that. Anyone who even people who talk exclusively and nonstop about themselves, and even when you kind of insert or interject your own experience, they talk over you, or they one up you. The person who's always like, oh, well, they have a better story to top your story. The person who has to be in the spotlight all the time. The person who has to be number one all the time. They have to be the best. And then they get angry when that's challenged or put into question.
If it's something great, they always had something to do with it.
They're greater. Yeah.
Right? So if something happened and they played a little part, but they want you to know they played a huge part, it's because of me that this happened. Like they always have to let you know
they're the hero. They're always, every story, they're the hero or the victim. The hero or if you listen to their stories, there's always a story about how they were the hero. They saved the day. It happened because of them, that they're the ones, they're the star. Or if they can't get attention for something like that, they're the victim. So, they create a mess or problems, and then they blame other people, and then they're the victim. So if they can't get you to praise them and admire them, they get you to somehow feel sorry for them.
So
so it works both ways.
Right. So they're the victim, whereas nobody appreciates me. You don't appreciate the things that I do. You're not, exactly. Okay, great. So guys, don't forget, this is a conversation. So if we're in a relationship, right, we need to be able to know what are some of these qualities, but not only in a relationship, but our family dynamics, right? Sisters, brothers, fathers, mothers.
Yep.
It's
Cousins.
funny. Yep. I saw this one book that said, do I have a narcissistic mom? Right? And so I guess the question would be, are they doing this? Right?
Yeah.
Right? So if you are one, right?
As a parent?
As a parent,
Okay.
do you think your qualities really rub off on your child? Because I know you talked about genetics. So would it be more genetics or would it be more
Or they could become people pleasers.
That is exactly. That is such an interesting question because it really can go a number of different ways. I mean, the two most common are, yeah, I mean, you can pass down that genetic material of a narcissistic personality. And then if you're a narcissistic parent, the narcissistic parenting is going to bring out
influence?
the narcissistic behavior even more, because either that parent is spoiling the child, like, my precious golden child, mini me, is it perfect and amazing and doesn't ever do anything wrong, or the opposite of, well, it's always about me, and so that child is diminished and ignored and neglected because the parent is competitive or is only taking care of their own needs. There's a lot of ways it could play out. But if that child has those personality traits too, and they're getting raised by a narcissistic parent, it's most likely going to bring about more narcissism. It often goes the other way too. Like you said, a lot of times when you have a narcissistic parent or any family member that you have to live with, if you're not a narcissist, you grow up learning how to stay safe by making everybody happy around you. And so you're hyper vigilant to facial expressions, to tone of voice, and you make sure that you're never disappointing anybody so that you don't have to face that torrent of, that hurricane of what happens when a narcissist is displeased. If you look at families, it's really interesting. If there's more than one child with a narcissistic parent, there's usually, because you know how siblings are often different or opposite, like what one person inherits from one parent, the other child gets from the other parent, like two very different kids, even though they come from the same
house. Exactly.
A lot of times you'll see one child is narcissistic and the other one couldn't be more, is a people pleaser who's tripping over himself to make everyone else happy. And usually those two siblings, either they get along great because the people pleaser just completely caters to this and hasn't learned to stick up for themselves yet. And so they're close because the people pleaser feels like they need this narcissistic sibling to stick up for him, or to or just the association of someone powerful, like they feel weak and like they need that sibling. Or it could be in reverse, where if they're not a total pushover, they clash and they fight because that
they're
person
pushing back,
wants to have boundaries and isn't accepting that. So it can go all these different ways, and families are so interesting because you have two parents who have multiple children, and they're all going to turn out differently with their personalities and even with birth order and their place in the system. So depending on how the first one turns out, the second one, with their own personality and with being a second born and with dealing with this person as a firstborn, it's going to all, families are like systems with moving parts. And so,
yeah. So I was gonna say, you could take the next comment.
Okay. So we got Gail Kilo popping in saying good evening. Good evening,
Gail. Thank you for joining us.
We're talking with licensed therapists about narcissistic behaviors,
marriage and family therapist.
Licensed marriage and family therapist. There you go.
So we're talking about narcissistic behaviors, and we're talking about it in relationships. So we're talking about not only in your intimate relationships, but also family.
That's right.
And now we're going to get into some friends, and
how we actually, as we're talking about family, how we feed into that, right? Being in large families or being in small families, or just feeding into that behavior of someone else and realizing like, oh, that's just the way they are. But we're actually encouraging them to do more of this behavior if we don't present them with it, right? If we don't set up those boundaries.
But let me ask you this then. Isn't it like strong parenting to say you need to be strong when you go out here in the world? So I don't want you to be walked over, so I'm going to teach you to be strong. I guess that's, you may be taking it overboard, but I mean, that's a form of parenting, right? I don't want anyone to mistreat my child.
How do you imagine you would teach your child to be strong then?
Oh, she's talking to you.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm asking kind of rhetorical. Like I know the answer, but I was like, Right. Like, so, I mean, the way you teach your child to be strong is you give them a voice, right?
Hmm.
You allow them to contradict you respectfully, and you make sure that your children feel like they have something to say, and you
Right.
give them a voice, and you listen to their requests and their needs, and also you model for them,
What you want, what that looks like.
Right. How to
yeah.
have a strong
Yeah.
voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, you take responsibility in front of them. You make it safe for them to bring things up so they feel like they can. Um, so I mean, that's how you would teach your child to be strong. It's not by saying, "Hey, yeah, you got to be strong. Don't
Be a
don't
bully,
take,
right? It's not
yeah,
about being a bully.
yeah,
Right.
go punch that kid in the schoolyard the next time he tries to take your lunch money." Like, I mean, well, maybe you might do that. I don't know. I might. If someone tries to take my lunch money, I might, but not today. But you teach them, like, it's safe to bring things up with me, and that gives them confidence, and so you sort of like foster that environment where it's safe to speak up.
And so you can see the likes, because I saw some different names that's
Hmm.
not on. So guys, please make sure that you ask questions either for you or just to know. Hi Sandra, hi Tanji, hi
Darlene.
Shakila.
Shakila, hey,
That's
how
right.
are
And
you?
Wilda, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for the likes. Please feel free to drop any questions. We know that this is just conversations, and if
Right.
we don't ask the specialist,
Right.
then we won't know. So
So
and
you
we have
can't,
to.
and you can't say you don't know. You had the opportunity to ask. You had the opportunity to come on and have this conversation. See, we're bringing some of the best conversations to you, so you can have better family dynamics, right? We want better
And it's not
relationships
just
and better.
about family, because we work with these people as well, right?
Oh.
They're our bosses. They're
Oh.
people who are trying to get up in the ladder, and they don't care who they step on, because in society we tell them it's okay to step on someone to get to the top, right? So we have to be able to. How do you deal with people like this? And I know you said
In a
set
work
boundaries
environment?
in a work environment,
Okay.
in a home environment, in
Well,
a
I want to go to the
relationship
I want to go
environment.
to the friends, and I want to go into the work. I really want to talk to the
Friends?
friends, right?
Well,
Because
Okay.
the
I'm
friends.
talking about friends first. So you got a guy. You're not going to name names. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
He got a
It's like, I
friend.
got to
I
figure
got a
out what to
friend.
do with Billy before our time is up today.
Right, right.
Right, that's what it
Right.
sounds like. He's like, I have this friend.
I have this
You're
friend.
asking for a friend?
I'm,
'Cause you
no,
can-
I'm asking for me, for
Yeah.
my friend, because how am I going to deal with him? Yeah.
That's what she's saying. How are you gonna deal with Billy
Right.
before this 20
Right.
minutes is
Billy,
up?
I'm going to let you know now that by the time we get done with this podcast,
I'ma know how
our
to-
relationship going to be different.
I'm gonna know how to set up some boundaries.
Right.
All right.
Okay. So about friends, what's the question?
Well, I mean, like you said earlier, they one up you. You know, and a lot of times, like when we're having conversations, especially men, we're having conversation, and someone says something, you go, "Oh, here you go," here you go. Yeah, I know you've been there, and if I ran, so fast, you ran 10 times faster than me.
Right.
So people just kind of shrug it off, but they know that's how he always is. Man, I did this. Well, I really did this. So how do you? I mean,
How do you deal with them?
how do you deal with that?
Yeah.
I just think they're lying, right? I'm like, dude, you're lying. Come on.
Yeah. The guy who always has to be the best. I mean,
Yes.
you're not
Dress
going to
the
get
best, speak the
you're not
best,
gonna-
hat the best. Right.
you're not going to get him to stop being that way, no matter what you say and do. So none of the ways that you handle it are going to get him to stop doing that.
Okay.
Right. So you want to think about how important it is for you when you're with him for example, normally I recommend, if it's not important, to just like let him go on and do that, and just know that that's what he does, and know your own truth. Right. So if it's just the two of you and he's like, oh, well, I ran faster or whatever, it's like, all right, good for you, man. And you really have to be inside so connected to your truth and know your value, where whatever someone else says or whatever their truth is or whatever they think doesn't matter. Like whatever is going on in his head has nothing to do with you. And it's like, who you are, let him say whatever he wants about himself. Let him, oh, there he is bragging again. This is what he does when we get together. How much more of this am I going to be able to tolerate today? Maybe I leave a little early. Maybe I don't get dessert, because I'm
That's
right?
why I
Like,
ordered dessert
So let me
first.
ask you a question. So basically, why you were asking is basically, is there anything you can do? Is there some type of behavior you
I
should
mean, yeah,
have?
should I just cut the relationship off, right?
Well,
I
she
mean,
can't
like,
answer that for
I mean,
you.
no, I know, but I'm
right.
saying
But
it's
like,
nothing that I
yeah,
can
you
do.
have to think about how much how much you want to invest in someone who behaves that way. So
Right.
for some people, just limiting your exposure to them and
Mhm.
having, less contact with them is good enough because you like them. They're still funny, or they're still fun to, watch an MMA fight with, or, whatever it is you do. And
Right.
that's great. And you don't want to stop doing that. So, you just don't see them as often, or you just don't let the visits go on for as long, because that, like, usually, the first hour is great. You spend too much time. Now you're hearing a long story about how amazing he is, or, how he got, whatever. You're
Right.
dealing with more of his nonsense. And so don't spend as much time with him. It's less frequency, less time, that sort of thing. If you feel like this person contributes really nothing, doesn't add value to you in your life, and you're kind of tired of him and you don't need to be spending time with him, maybe this is a relationship that you kind of scale back or just stop feeding into and let it fizzle out. Because I do strongly endorse the idea of protecting your energy and really thinking carefully about who you surround yourself with. And
Absolutely.
I think it's important to surround yourself with good energy people,
Yeah.
people who are
Yeah.
supportive, uplifting, positive. Don't hang around with people who drain you and make you feel bad after you've spent time with them.
Or just drain you, period. Yeah.
right.
So now, like at work. So let's say you're dealing with someone like that at work, and so you can take the next question, and maybe she can even put that
Wrap that
in
in
there
there.
with it. Yeah, wrap it all in there together.
Okay.
I don't know, Sandra. I don't know if you were on from the beginning, but we did go through some signs and like some behaviors. So I don't know if you want to repeat them again, Carla. So the question was, so what is a true narcissistic person?
Yeah, I mean, a real narcissist will never be able to look at themselves. They will never be able to take in someone else's experience. They will deflect against it. They will turn the blame around, gaslight, project, do whatever manipulation tactic possible to make sure that they maintain their status as superior, perfect, special, and amazing without ever having to look at themselves. They will not examine their character defects. And I mean, that's a chief trait. That's one of the biggest, most prominent ones that you'll see in someone who is really a narcissist. So you can't have a discussion that yields any kind of mutual understanding. They're defending themselves as perfect, and you're the one who's the problem. They never see themselves as the common denominator in any problem. They are always the hero or the victim in every story. Every story you hear, they're amazing, they're a hero, they saved the day, or somehow they're the victim and they're looking for pity and attention. So, when you're dealing with someone who does not change and will not take in any other perspective but their own about themselves as special, amazing, flawless individuals,
Mm.
you can be pretty sure you're dealing with someone who is actually narcissistic. And look, there's a whole bunch of self-entitlement and greed and exploitive and all this stuff. But when it's all about them and they're going to get theirs and they don't care about you or anyone else, that's narcissism.
Is one of those things that you find it that they also have to kind of be in control? Like they have
Yes.
to control everything?
Yeah, I chapter 5 of my book is The Control Freak. Yeah, there's a whole chapter about control. Yes.
Yeah, they
Yes.
should get its own chapter,
You're right.
right?
Your own chapter. They are very controlling individuals. They have to be in control of people and situations. And it's not like the anxious kind of control
Right.
where sometimes people with anxiety need to like be in control of things or plan things or control an outcome in order to alleviate their anxiety. This is power hungry control. It's a different kind of control. It's like cult leader control, or it's like um possessive boyfriend control. Like you can't talk to nobody. Like you
Ooh,
can't,
yeah.
right? Like I own you.
And if you don't do what I say, then there's a consequence
Right.
to it.
right. It intimidating you and threatening you to do things the way they want or to do what they want. Making you feel like you're going to be punished if you don't just acquiesce and give them what they want all the time. That is narcissistic control for
Okay,
sure.
one more question. So people who are like that, do you think let's just say they're at work and
Mm-hmm.
they feel as though they're right? Because they're always right. Do
Uh-huh.
they usually go and find someone to play the victim to so that they can get validated outside of, like, do they need outside validation from someone else if they didn't get it in that argument they just had?
Yeah, I mean, that is one tactic. That is one
Mhm.
tactic that they will do. I mean,
To
they
be
have
the
yeah, I mean, like, they have, 1,000 manipulation tactics up their sleeve. Playing the
Wow.
victim is one of, like, the all-time favorite, narcissistic fan favorite. Yes, that they do that a lot because if they can't get their way, playing the victim and getting what when they play the victim, they're basically using your guilt. And
Mm.
people feel guilt so easily. I mean, people guilt and shame themselves all the time. And so they're really clever at, kind of pinpointing, what might work with you and what you're sensitive about, or, how to use your guilt to get you to do what they want. So, yeah, that's one thing they might do and a very common thing for sure.
So I'm going to go to the other extreme, and you
Okay.
can jump in.
All right, go
So
ahead.
let's just say, hypothetically, you've been in a relationship with someone like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now you've left them. You're out of that relationship. Do you find that those people, as you said, are in recovery? Did you call it recovery? Right.
Yeah.
So they're in recovery. Do you find that they go to the extreme? Well, it's like, okay, I let this person walk all over me, so I'm never going to let anybody do it again. Or this
Yes.
person, controlled me, and I'm never going to let. Do you find that they just go like
Yes. That's
totally?
very common when people start learning, people pleasers learning about boundary setting. Yes, like because with a lot of times when there's a new behavior, with any new behavior, there's an overcorrection at first, and
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
then
Okay. Okay.
it balances back. So you see that. I've even seen some really funny Instagram videos or reels of like Mr. Bean going out the window, right? And he's like, and then it says in my boundary setting era, me and my new boundary setting
Boundary setting.
era
Okay.
or
Right.
something.
Right. Right.
Right.
That's exactly what I'm
Yeah.
saying. It's
Yes.
like I find people who, right? You say they self correct, or people who have, I don't know.
Over.
We some people may call it, you've gained a higher self-esteem, but sometimes I think because of the experiences,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of
Sure.
Because they're
overdo your
learning.
independence.
Because they're learning how to do it. So they overcorrect, they over exaggerate it until they can find that balance. Because
Balance. Okay.
really, like, it's a skill. And it takes, assertiveness is a fine line, between aggression and passivity, right? It's diplomacy and it takes skill, and they're still learning that. So they've been all the way over here in submissive territory, and they're trying to
Yeah. Yeah.
get
And
in the middle, and they're just going to be they haven't learned the finesse of assertiveness, so they overcorrect into
yeah,
aggression, but they usually
exactly.
figure it out and kind of come back to
They
that
Yeah.
come back.
balance,
It, it
They
takes it
come
takes
back
some
and
years.
censors
It takes some
themselves.
years.
Yeah.
Look, sometimes it takes one because they're like, "Oh no, I'm gonna speak up. I'm gonna say exactly what's
Especially
on
with
my mind." And
people pleasers. They'll be like, I'm asking for everything that I never asked for before, and I'm just gonna be just bold and everything.
yeah,
And then they just shun away a lot of their friends because, like, you
it's like
changed and
it's
you're
like I don't.
cold now.
And
Uh,
yeah, but that makes sense, right? So
yeah.
they overly do it until they can realize that, hey, I don't have to be to this extreme, but I don't have to be to that extreme. I have to kind of find a
Yeah, but I
balance.
mean, think about it. They've been fighting a monster, and so they think that they're still fighting a monster until they learn that, hey,
That's
actually,
true.
like, it's effective, it works. I don't need to do all that. This person's actually listening to me. And so if they
Exactly.
can practice it around supportive,
People.
high functioning people who are empathic, they'll learn to kind of like rein it in and get that balance.
That's a great. You can get that last comment.
Okay.
All right. Let's see what this one says.
Oh,
Got to
Sandra.
get out of their presence. Yeah,
Yeah.
but as she stated earlier, if you find yourself in a relationship, whether it's work, whether it's family, it's a sibling, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's your partner, Don't set a boundary that you're not willing
to live
follow
by.
through
Right.
in, right? To live by. So tell us that again and why that's so important.
Yeah, I mean, when you set a boundary, you're saying what you want or what you won't accept. And if you do this, X, Y, and Z, if you don't do if you don't respect my boundary, I'm going to leave. Then you have to leave if they don't respect your boundary, because then you're in a relationship with someone who doesn't take you seriously, because you've threatened to leave and you don't leave, and you say what upsets you, but yet you still stay, so that
Right.
they learn I can do all the things that upset this person and I don't have to change, because they stay no matter what they say.
Right.
But when you set a boundary and you say this is what I need, and the person doesn't honor that or respect that, because that's their choice, they don't have to do what you want either.
Right.
But if they don't, then now you have a new set of choices, which is, well, they don't respect my boundary. They don't understand me or my needs. Maybe this isn't the right relationship for me. This is a relationship I can't get my needs met in. So, if you're dealing with a narcissist, they're not going to respect your boundary. Right. And
Right.
like the person in the chat just said, it's much better to give yourself peace and leave a
Get out of their
relationship that's
presence.
toxic or abusive. Get out of there if you can,
Right. If you can.
Because I'm
Go ahead.
No, I was just thinking, like, if you're in a relationship and let's just say you're just kind of a passive person, right? And you've kind of given people their way and they're used to being in control and doing everything. That doesn't necessarily mean they're narcissistic. That may be that maybe you're not doing what right. You're
you've
kind of
established you've established a dynamic, and you've
yes,
given someone
exactly.
permission to be in control, because people feed off of each other. And so
Absolutely.
if they're like this with you and you never speak up, they don't know. And that's why boundaries are so important, because your boundary is saying, hey, wait, actually, this thing is important to me. Like, you can pick where we eat all day long. I don't really care. But when it comes to like where we're going on vacation, I mean, I'm using really superficial examples here.
Right. Yeah,
Right,
that's fine.
right.
But it's like, no, I need to speak up now. Like, you can tell me when we're eating Italian and when we're getting sushi and when we're doing the taco truck. But this summer, like, I'm deciding where we're gonna
We're
go.
going.
Right.
So how do you know, right? So just thinking of that, how do you know if the relationship that you're in, right, whether with a sibling or with a partner, and if we're talking about relationships, intimate, how do you know if it's you, the person who has just not spoke up enough or played passive or was the people person, right? How do you know if it's you, but the person that you're in now that you're
by starting to speak up.
okay,
okay.
and
By
then
starting
the
to
other
speak up,
person receives it.
and by doing it effectively. If you do it Mr. Bean style with fingers out the window, that's not going to go very well. You're gonna
With
you're
the
gonna
person,
have a fight.
right,
You're gonna have a
right.
fight, whether the person's a narcissist or not. You're gonna have a fight. But if you really think about how you want to start stepping into assertiveness and advocating for yourself in a healthy, constructive way, you will find out what the other person's capable of. Because if they have empathy, they'll listen. And if they don't, they won't.
And I think change is, like we always say, change is difficult. Sometimes people get sick and tired of being sick and tired, and so they want to change, like you just said, in a
Right.
very calming, very I want proactive way, not necessarily like Mr. Bean, right? But you do it in a way that you're growing, and the other person may not receive it as well, because now you're changing the whole dynamics of the relationship, which means that it has to be reworked. But we also have to realize that, like, we have to be able to see.
Yeah.
It's that person may not just be narcissistic. It just may be resistance from, hey, you're making me give up my control. So
They need a period of adjustment. Maybe they
Yeah.
need to adjust, and they need to understand, like, this is how a person I care about has been feeling, and this is something that we need to figure out
discuss.
in order to have a relationship together. And someone who's not a narcissist can understand that. Someone who is will probably never get there.
And so what I was going to say, so for you guys who are not in relationships yet, you can take that next from message. So
Yeah.
for those of you all who are not in relationships and maybe you're looking to get into one, just make sure that you know who you are.
Yep.
Set some boundaries, and we talk about that. You set your boundaries, and you're willing to don't give fake promises.
Like what we say, your non-negotiables. Don't
Yes.
negotiate on your non-negotiables. If you do that, you're asking for problems.
Yes. So
Yep.
thank you, Kelly, for tuning in. You said this I think she meant
Yeah,
this is a very important conversation. Yeah,
Yep,
you just
yeah,
missed
it is.
Yes,
Well,
yes,
we-
absolutely.
We only bring the best, so come on now. Come on. This is what we do.
Okay, watch it. Don't show any signs of behavior.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's see the next message from Darlene. All right, Darlene said, so good to hear the truth. I appreciate you all. We appreciate you too. Thank you for tuning in. And just, just as we're navigating this space of relationship, guys, just, if you're a person who does not do introspection, you might want to take a closer look, but also
It's a good time to start.
Yeah,
it's definitely a good time to start.
But also be aware of these red flags and these things that are going on and be able to navigate those spaces, as Sandra said. And maybe that may not be the relationship that you need to be in. But, let's not do things hastily. Let's at least take the time to research, to try to have conversations. And if you can't, find someone who can negotiate for you, someone who can be the mediator to help you. And if that person is empathetic, then it may not be what you think. It could just be we've just grown into this habit of the way we treat each other.
I got one thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know how
it's 7 o'clock.
I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
This just one thing. I'm going to speak my truth.
Watch out, she's setting a boundary. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
So you know how religion, it says the wife should be submissive. Can that create some type of a problem in a relationship where the wife is just being a wife and being submissive in the relationship to create a happy, loving relationship within the home?
Yeah, I mean that could be a whole other show of like cultural dynamics, right?
Right.
But the only thing I'll say about that is if she's submissive, I believe it's his responsibility to take care of her while she's submissive to him. So it's like two people being vulnerable. If you're submissive to him, he's got to be taking care of you though, right? Not walking all over you, right?
Yeah.
It's a difference. That's a good point when you say taking care of you.
So guys, pay attention to that.
So don't get that wrong. Taking
Right.
care of you doesn't mean just supplying you with a house or, shelter
Right.
and food.
Emotionally.
We're talking about emotional and everything. else.
Exactly.
Yes.
Taking care of you where you're being nurtured and watered and appreciated. So,
Yeah.
Good point.
Some of all of those needs, right? Has those needs. Yes.
Exactly. It's a reciprocation there.
Right.
It's not I'm your doormat.
So
Exactly.
yeah, you can do that and you can be submissive, but you also want to feel safe
Right.
and loved and all
Right.
those things. Yeah.
You can lay down your beautiful doormat, and then are you going to step on it and wipe the dirt off your right? Or are you going to like take care of it and brush it off and keep it pretty? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right. Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
a
I hate
doormat.
buying
It's
new
laying
doormats
there.
and they're so pretty, and then people step on them, but that's what they're for, right? So we have to be
Right.
Right.
Because like that's an actual doormat, but it's like,
right.
that's the thing. But like, she like lays down before you, like, here I am. It's like,
Right.
how do you want to treat that?
Exactly. And we're laughing, guys, but this
Right.
is really a serious thing.
Right. And I'm just
especially-
saying, it's just something to think
Yeah.
about because most people say, I want to be that type of wife. I want to model that. Right. So
Then you'd better
comes.
pick a non-narcissistic
person.
good man.
Yeah.
If you
yeah.
want to be that wife, pick a good guy so he doesn't hurt you while you're that vulnerable to him. That's what I would say.
That's a good answer. Good answer. I
That's
like
a good
that answer.
answer.
Good. Can we get that?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So, are there any other questions,
All right,
guys?
yeah, we can
It is
start wrapping
7:02.
up. So, guys, if you guys got a question, you wanna chime in right quick, you can go ahead.
So before we get out of here, we're just going to let you guys know, Jason and I, because some of you asked, right? Jason and I are trained and certified life and relationship coaches. We help you win at life and in your relationships, your intimate relationships, your social relationships, your business relationships, all relationships. So we take each client through a journey through our manifest mythology framework. And so if you're not sure what that is, look at the beginning of the video or go to our website. And so we want to make sure that you're getting the best out of life. And so we show you how to do that through your relationships. So we're here for you. But when we take you through this, it's not a free ride. Some people want to come in and they just do it for me, right? You're gonna have to do this work. You're gonna have to be able to stand up for yourself. You're gonna have to be able to do the introspection. You're gonna have to be able to do the self work that's required for you to do.
So, you have to do some hard work.
Absolutely. Let me get this over here for you before we get out of here. Okay. All right.
Are we over there?
Yeah,
All right,
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
All right, yeah. So, all right. So, therefore, listen. We understand that we have the book. Manifest a Joy-Filled Relationship. And we know that it might be a lot to digest. I mean, it's not a small book. It's 300 pages. So you might not be able to do it at one time. So you know what? We're going to make sure that we come up with some quick and easy wins for you. So we'll be hosting a webinar, right? Taking the things straight out of the book and explaining how to implement them in your life. And we'll be also taking exercises out of our workbook, Manifest a Joy-Filled Relationships workbook, to teach and to work with you so you can actually manifest that joy-filled relationship in a community with like-minded individuals, so we can discuss issues and that you may be facing and how to move in this space and become even better than what you are.
That's right. So, guys, stay tuned for some more information on the let me go up here. Get over. I guess I won't. Oh, hold on, guys. I think I lost you.
Yeah,
I'm
you
gonna give Jason the thing.
Yeah, because you know good.
I was
that
trying
way.
to bring up a thing. So we're going to just stay tuned. We're going to be announcing the webinar soon. Make sure that you sign up. And if we don't have your email, make sure that you email us at info@legendaryrelationship.com, or you continually check the website. Or if we do have your email, you will be notified. So are there any other questions before we get out of here for tonight? We appreciate you. We love you. We thank you for interacting. And Carla, is there anything else? Tell them where they can reach you. Tell them whatever.
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at Carla Lito Therapy. You can find my website, carlalitotherapy.com. And you can buy my book, Outsmarting Egomaniacs, How to Respond to Narcissists and Master Manipulators. There it is. You can find it everywhere books are sold, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or wherever you buy your books.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. So, guys, again, I hope there's no more questions. Jason, there's some more hot chocolate. I don't want to miss out anyone, because sometimes people say you forgot to shout me out. So,
yeah.
All right. So
Gail said hey, and she gave you some love.
Yep. All right.
Oh, Versi chimed in. Hi,
all right.
hi, Versi.
Versi's watching. Thank you, Versi, for chiming in with thumbs up. We appreciate it. All right, guys. I think that's it for us. We've had another episode, so we are out of here for another Friday night. And as always,
we're in it to win it. Till next week, guys.
Love you.
Yeah, be safe.
Thank you, Carla.
Yeah, hold on, Carla.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Lovin' Beyond the I Do podcast. Head over to iTunes to subscribe and leave a review. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Legendary Relationship, or visit our website at legendaryrelationship.com. Till next time, remember to make every day count.